from Westram in West Kent. Nigel Farage, thank you very much for your time. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You've said that you've come out of semi-retirement to lead this party. You've been an MP for the South East for 20 years on a decent salary, we estimate, of £90,000 recently. Did you really treat those 20 years and that salary as semi-retirement?
No, what I said was I was leader of a national party before, so rather than working 40 hours a week, I used to work 100 hours a week, and for the last couple of years, I've taken it a bit easier. I'd fully intended to leave the European Parliament. I'd done my 20 years because I was told by Theresa May 108 times that we were leaving on the 29th of March. That's what the country were told. We haven't left on the 29th of March. We're now told we could be leaving by the 31st of October. Frankly, I don't trust this government or this Parliament to give us anything like the Brexit that people voted for once in a referendum, twice, of course, in a general election when various promises were made. And that's why I've set the Brexit Party up to fight for democracy. You know, what kind of country are we if we have the biggest democratic exercise in our history and it's not delivered? I want it delivered.
Theresa May has said we've got to do a deal. A lot of talk in today's newspapers about a deal possibly being done next week between Labour and the government. If there is a deal between Labour and the Conservatives, that means no European Parliament elections, or at the very least you probably wouldn't be able to take your seats. No chance possibly of that big triumph for you and your new party.
Let me just tell you something. If that deal is done between Corbyn and May, which means a permanent customs union and effectively staying part of the single market, that will be the ultimate betrayal of all the promises that were made to voters. And I promise you, millions of voters would leave both the Conservative and Labour parties in that eventuality. If this deal goes ahead, there will not be a Conservative party that frankly even existing. And I think we could be very close now to politics realigning in this country.
What does the vote for your party, the Brexit Party, achieve? Is it just about sending a message to the other parties, especially the government? Is that it?
No, we want to change politics for good. For us, May the 23rd is the first step to a much more radical kind of politics than I've ever been involved in before. We have got to break the two-party system. They serve nobody but themselves anymore. We have an electoral system that's out of date, a House of Lords that is discredited, a Parliament no longer in touch with the people of this country, and we've seen a betrayal of that referendum result. So no, we want a radical transformation of British politics to make it directly accountable, to make it reflect who we are, and winning those European elections is a very good first step.
Well, help us out here and tell us a little bit about what your party believes in. It might be easy for you, as it looks perhaps from the polls, to win the European parliamentary elections on this single issue of the Brexit you say the people voted for. But there's no manifesto. There are no policy statements on a wide range of issues. If you run in for Westminster, which everyone's now sensing, and you've talked about putting candidates up, what is your party about except Brexit?
Well, let's be clear that this is not just another issue. This is about whether we are a democratic nation. It's about how the rest of the world sees us, and we will fight the European elections on democracy and trust. Beyond that, of course, we'll have a broad range of policies. But by the way, I will never use the word manifesto again in my life. The word manifesto has a word association with lies, because both the Labour and Conservative parties told us in 2017 they would deliver the Brexit we voted for, and they're not doing it. So I will call it in future a policy platform.
OK, but I mean, unless you have one, and you clearly don't at the moment, how can you possibly be held accountable? What do people think they're going to be voting for?
No. We are... Well, if we're not a democratic country, you may as well close Parliament down and not bother with elections, just have us run by Mr Juncker and a few bureaucrats. This is the most important question we've asked ourselves in this country for 300 years. That is what May the 23rd is all about. Beyond that, we will talk about health, education and everything else.
You talk about whether or not we're a democratic country. Some might question whether yours is a really democratic party. UKIP's #1 candidate in the South East, your old colleague Piers Walkup, said on this programme last week Nigel Farage left UKIP because he wanted to be in complete control. He set up a party surrounded entirely by people selected by him. Is he right?
Well, I'm running this new party like a company. And so far, we're 4.5 weeks into our existence. We're topping the polls at 30%. I think we're getting it right.
You're running to be MEP for the South East again, but you're doing very well in the polls for the European elections. You spoke this morning on Sky of the prospect of a political realignment, and you've talked about it again on this programme. With the Tory party, as you see it, no longer fit for purpose, is this Nigel Farage who wants to be Prime Minister?
It's Nigel Farage that wants to radically change British politics. I've never had those kind of political ambitions. I'm not like sort of a Boris that dreamt from Oxford of being the PM. What I think I'm good at is making arguments and shifting the debate in the country. I think without my efforts, to be honest, I doubt we'd have had a referendum, and I now want to try and use whatever I'm good at to try and reshape British politics. I've no ambition myself to finish up at the top of it, but if I can be an agent for change, an agent for democracy, I'd be very happy to do that.
Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us.